Hey guys, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Let me get my notes real quick. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Uh, got some. Well, I didn't really get a whole lot of stuff done, but yeah. So let's just get right into it, right? So I want to make a video. I'm gonna touch on a couple things, so just kind of stick with me on this. But I wanted to make a video talking about Talladega, and initially, I wanted to make a video that was talking about uh, some of the issues with start times and some other stuff that people were kind of complaining about during the rain delay. But last night, I was having a hard time falling asleep, and saw something on Twitter, and it it was one of those things that really just totally took me off guard. Um, it was Bob Pockris put out something. That was the first person I saw that mentioned it. Uh, that's a I don't even like to even say what it is. Um, a noose was found in Bubba Wallace's pit stall. So I'm gonna kind of keep this video made as if you're an intelligent NASCAR fan. I'm not gonna really talk as if you're someone kind of viewing this from the outside who's not watching NASCAR. Um, so first of all, a lot of people are outraged. A lot of people are mad and angry and pissed off. And I guess I kind of get that, but I I was just really sad, really really sad, and I feel like um, eventually those people that are mad will probably feel sad too at some point, because and depressed. It's depressing because what what I think some people aren't realizing right away, maybe because they are angry, and I get that, is I commented on Michael McDowell's Twitter last night because he posted it, and I'm a big front row motorsports fan, and I said it's so sad because you have to think that that person who did that, the message that they were trying to send towards Bubba Wallace, it's not just a noose and an item. I hope people aren't just looking at it as that. That person was saying, this is for you to be hanged with. And I hope that everyone understands that. Because this wasn't just a I don't know exactly what else to call it because it's so obvious, but I hope people that are upset don't that they see that they're not just seeing, oh, this is just someone try, like that. No, it's much more than that. Like, someone's basically saying, I'm going to kill you. It's coming. Not only that, it's I'm going to kill you in one of the most terrifying ways possible as a black man. I mean, that just, to me, that is like worse than you know the movies that Hollywood make up, where it's like someone gets on the phone and it's like, I'm gonna kill. That's like worse than that. I mean, this is just horrendous. I mean, it's you're to me. If I was Bub Wallace, I'll be honest with you, I would probably go to that racetrack, but I would be scared for my life. I mean, it would scare the hell out of me. I mean, I just I hope people understand what that person's trying to say. And that's why I was sad, because if you think of it like that, I mean, it's horrible. So, um, and I wanted to also say it's just, this is too far. It's gone too far. Um, and I'm gonna say this, and I know that it's easy to kind of be a armchair quarterback here, but a lot of this is, I don't want to say it's all NASCAR's doing, but a lot of this is NASCAR's doing. And one thing that I'm pissed off about is you keep seeing all this NASCAR, I don't want to say patting themselves on the back, but they're like, oh, we're moving forward, we're being progressive, and this and that. Why? Why just now? Why? What? Meaning, and I'm leading up to something, meaning that it wasn't a big deal for you in the 90s when the rebel flag and the Confederate whatever was a way more prominent and used thing in the sport back then. I remember when I went to races back in the 90s and stuff, you saw Confederate flags everywhere. And a lot of those people that were the people NASCAR trying to get rid of, the redneck racist southern person, whatever, they were mostly Dale Earnhardt fans. And I can tell you for a fact, the neighbors I had next door went to every Daytona 500 race, and outside their yard, it was American flag, Rebel flag, Dale Earnhardt flag, senior. At NASCAR tracks, same way. American flag, Dale Earnhardt flag, Rebel flag, or vice versa. You know what I mean? It was right there at all these races, all of them. So many of them. And NASCAR knew back then, and that was a 20th century, that was a 20th century. That was modern day times, It's not the 60s, the 70s. It was the 90s, the late 90s, the early 2000s. They didn't give a shit then. They knew what their fan base was. And so for them to all of a sudden, oh yeah, we're doing, no. And I think that one of the reasons that it's become a backlash now is because they knew that they would get these type of antics and crap like this back then if they would have canceled it. But they should have did it back then. They should have made a stand back then. They knew the fans they had. They knew it was wrong. And excuse me, I had to clear my throat. Sorry. And I'll tell you another thing that's with that is, I don't want to try to make the driver sound bad. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want to do that. Let's just say, if you know enough about NASCAR, the driver that took over for Dale Earnhardt Sr. kind of inherited some of his fans. And the races that I go to now, and I like this driver. I like the driver. You know what I'm talking about. I like him. I think he's a good guy. But the sponsors and the type of fans that he has are the last of the old school type of fans that I was talking about that have that way about them. And I think that when he's gone and he finally gets out, you lose a lot of those fans. And I'm telling you for a fact, I go to Darlington Speedway, I see his fans acting like just buffoons more than any other fan. And it just reminds me of the same fans that NASCAR was talking about and the same crap I used to see when I was a kid at races in the 90s. And so I do think NASCAR is doing the right thing, of course, by getting rid of the Confederate flag. Obviously, it needed to be done a long time ago, because look at how people are reacting. They're reacting like little babies about it. They had the Confederate flag plane fly over, That was another thing that pissed me off with NASCAR though, because I mean I get it, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't, sort of, kind of, but it's you're trying to. I don't want to say it should be kept internal, that photo, but you're trying to send, and obviously the news thing couldn't be kept internal because it's an investigation. People need to know about it. But, it's like the rebel flag thing flying over the track. I mean, I kind of feel like they just should not have said anything, because to me that was just some jackass that was flying a flag over that said defund NASCAR, which NASCAR is not a government organization or a state-run organization, so I don't really know how that applies to the same whole defund police type of attitude. But anyways, it's just some jackass flying a flag over there, and I just feel like NASCAR, by acknowledging that flag, which is kind of probably what that person wanted, you're just giving that person what they wanted, which was attention in media. So I feel like NASCAR should have just left that alone, and just no one should report that. Hey, if some Joe Schmo puts on Twitter that has 25 followers, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need NASCAR's paid reporters and stuff putting that up there. So I thought that was kind of, and that goes back to just NASCAR being stupid, playing in the sandbox. They need to grow up too when it comes to some of that stuff. They've got to learn what they need to filter and what they need to make media headlines. Finding a noose in someone's garage, yeah, that could go under the State Bureau of Investigations, SBI, or something like that. People are like, oh, the FBI is going to get involved with that. I don't know if it'll be an FBI case. I mean, it's not. I get it. It seems big, but in the FBI's thing, it's not like they're probably not looking at this person as like a homegrown terrorist or something like that. So I think saying that the FBI is going to get involved is a little extreme. But yeah, so that's where I stand on that. And I've been I try to kind of stay out of the whole, Black Lives Matter and a lot of the Confederate flag. And to be honest with you, it's not that I don't care about any of it. It's just that, unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately for me, but unfortunately, or I don't think that's a good way to put it, but the reality, that's a better way. The reality of it is I'm not exposed to racism. I don't see it. I'm in the military. We treat everyone the same in my unit. We don't have issues with that. I live in a town where I've actually asked some of my friends that are black in the military that live in the same town with me if they've ever seen racial police brutality based on being black, and they said no. So it's one of those deals to where when you're not around it and you haven't been around it for so long, I think, and you live in a smaller town, I think it's less of a concern. And from a NASCAR perspective, my grandfather, I don't tell some people this, but my grandfather was actually extremely, extremely close friends with Wendell Scott. Wendell Scott was a African American NASCAR driver. I briefly knew Wendell Scott before he passed away. I was about 6-7 years old, but I do have memories of him. Not very much, but I have memories of him. And so my grandpa was always helping Wendell and always around Wendell and going to races with Wendell and helping Wendell out, and they were just really good friends. They grew up in the Danville, Virginia area I grew up in, and I think for me, I hadn't been squawking a whole lot about all this because there's a book that I have that's called Hard Driving, and it's about Wendell Scott. And it actually won the Pulitzer Prize. It's a great book to read if you get it. I think it's like $20 on Amazon. Really good book. But between my grandpa's stories and reading the book, which a lot of my grandpa's stories are put into the book, you realize how bad it really used to be with the racial inequality and everything. And so I don't want to say that I compare my care level to what used to be to what is now, because the stuff that Wendell had to go through and the stuff that um, some of the people in the world are going through now are just, you know, not people in the world, but you know, guys like Bubba Wallace being a black driver is it's a little different. You know, Bubba Wallace he still obviously is being um, judged and stuff based on his skin color, which is horrible. But he still is given some opportunities, and Wendell wasn't given any opportunities really. No one gave him any breaks, you know. So times have moved forward, um, but when you see stuff like a noose, all it makes me think of is like, man, we're back to the Wendell Scott days, you know. Like that's like it's like we just went back to 1960 and the stuff he dealt with in NASCAR like that. Because that's the stuff that Wendell Scott would have seen back in 1960 and 50 when he was trying to race. My grandpa told me that's the stuff that you would see. So it truly bothers me, you know, because yeah. But unlike back then compared to now, back then no one cared really. Now people care. Now people are they're going to find this guy. If they don't, I will be shocked. They're going to find him. They're going to get rid of him. Thank God. And that's a good thing between now and then, though, is at least now, you know, they will find who did it. And people don't think it's okay. They don't think it's cool. Back then, I think some people thought it was cool and they thought it was okay. Now, no one thinks that way. Well, the majority of people don't think that way. I keep wanting to say no one thinks that way, and I keep wanting to kind of fool myself, which is kind of stupid. I keep wanting to say that NASCAR doesn't have a lot of races in it. NASCAR doesn't have that. I keep wanting to say that, and then something like this happens, and you're like, well, maybe I'm naive. Maybe there are a lot more racist, white, bigot, redneck idiots out there in the sport than I thought there was. Maybe I was wrong. I mean, maybe I'm trying to defend the sport too much because, again, I hate to say it, but maybe I've got blinders on to where I'm just seeing what I see at racetracks and not getting the overall picture. So, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe that's shame on me on that. So, I feel like, though, in general, NASCAR truly, at its core fan base, does not have a racial issue. I think that unfortunately there's just a couple of bad apples that are making it really bad for everybody. But, you know, you just got to keep weeding them out. Let me see how much time I have on my video because I might go into some other stuff here. Yeah, I got some time. Okay, cool. The other thing I wanted to go on, let's move out of that. So let's just talk about Talladega in general and how I feel about Talladega. So this is separate, but for one, and honestly, this whole thing that happened last night, all it does is reconfirm my thoughts on Talladega Speedway. I think originally Talladega Speedway was great. It was a really good thing for the sport. It was a great venue. It really did showcase who had the best cars, who had the best equipment, who had some good drivers that weren't afraid to take chances, and you know, it was a race of, you know, endurance and this and that. And around, I would say, the late 80s, early 90s, Talladega started getting different. Fact. Talladega, because of the aerodynamics and because of restrictor plates, trying to slow the cars down because they were just getting a little too fast, it started putting places like Daytona and Talladega in I'll call it competition box. meaning that it started to really, um, cars started to get a lot more equal, and it didn't matter how good your performance was. Um, that's evolved a lot. That being in a box, so much to where basically if your car starts, you've got a pretty good, you've got, I won't say good chance, but you have a somewhat decent chance of winning a race. As opposed to if you went to Texas Motor Speedway the next week and you were 40th place car, you'd finish 40th because that's, you have a slower car and equipment's not as good, so that's just where you'd end up at. But now Talladega and Daytona, look at some of the cars that have won there in the past that, that weren't competitive anywhere else, but won at Talladega or Daytona. So with that said, I think that those two tracks nowadays, and it's unfortunate because it's not the track's fault. It's not the track's fault the racing there sucks. It's not the track's fault that, so many race cars get torn up into demolition derby every time. It's not the track's fault. It's NASCAR's fault, the aero package fault, the restrictor plates. It's those tracks are too big for their own good to where you can't run them the way you need to because it'd be unsafe. You can't. Those places, the technology nowadays, if you took the restrictor plates off those cars and, they'd be breaking into turns. It's just too big. With that said, the place takes forever to dry. It doesn't dry well. It's flatter than Daytona. NASCAR's made the track worse because I think NASCAR's viewership is so low that they really can't adjust the start times. Steve O'Donnell basically said it. They're kind of in a box. They started doing start times on the East Coast from like 1 to 1:30 to 3:30 a few years ago. It might have been longer than that. It might have been several years ago. And, for a place like Talladega with no lights, it's a track that has not gone into the 21st century when it comes to lights and I think amenities and everything else. It's still living off its name. It knows it can pull in the big fan base. It lives down there. It knows that it doesn't have to change very much for people to still watch it. But let me tell you something. You think NASCAR is going to be getting any ratings today at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock when the race runs on a Monday? So they need to push the start time up on that place, because if you get one good heavy rain shower to lose a track, and let's say it comes out at, let's say green flag's at 3:30, let's say it comes out 3 o'clock, you're not even starting that race until almost 5 o'clock. It takes at least 90 minutes, if not longer, to dry that place. You're not even going to start the race till 5 o'clock. On top of that, if you started then without a whole bunch of cautions, you're barely going to get the race in time before it gets started. So you've only got really one chance of rain to make that place. And that's the only track you can say that about for the most part. Minus Pocono and maybe some other larger tracks. But that track specifically, with no lights, Pocono's the same way, I think. With no lights, you can't, there's not a lot of wiggle room. So some of these tracks with no lights need to get started earlier, because you're just taking that chance every time. You're taking that chance. And I get it. NASCAR's trying to say, oh, well, for years and years. Yeah, but it's, once, okay, but 3, 4, 5, 6 times of this rain crap. And it's happened throughout the years. This is not the first. I think someone said this is the 4th restrictor plate race in a row that's been rain delayed, meaning Talladega and Daytona. So, clearly, something needs to change. I think California will live if they have to watch 1 or 2 races at 11 o'clock in the morning once a year. So, that's frustrating for me. They need to fix that. I'm looking at my notes. Yeah. So, and that's another thing too. They need to be better about. Um, Obviously, they need to stay focused on this. You know, progressive thinking that they're going towards. They obviously need to do that, but they need to stay focused on a racing product. You know, they need to stop worrying about number placements and some of this other sidebar stuff that just doesn't matter. And to some extent, they do need to stay out of the politics. Something like, what's going on now, they need to work on that. But some of this stuff, trying to please every fan every type of single little way with gimmicky things and everything else and all this other stuff. I mean, they really need to just focus on the racing product. Stop spending time worrying about, like I said, numbers on doors or God knows what else. But I think if they can do that, they'll be in a good spot. But for right now, there's a lot of people frustrated with these start times, and I think that maybe something will get done. I think this is just getting too much. I think this is just getting. Um, I mean, this is like the fifth or sixth rain that we've had this year, and I get it, coronavirus, it got moved, but anyways, that's really all I got. I kind of lost track of some stuff, but hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was a real long video. I'm sorry about that, but tried to cover some ground, and like I said, anyone watching this, man, if you guys think you know who left that, probably not. I mean, no one really watches it, they wouldn't know. But anyone who knows anything about that situation, they need to let NASCAR know. Let somebody know. So, talk to you guys later. Bye.